Welcome back to Would You Gaming, the podcast where we strive to keep you up to date with all the latest in gaming news while also covering interesting topics along the way as well. Before we begin, make sure if you haven't already, you like, subscribe, give us a follow on any of our social platforms. We try to reach out to the audience there, and we try to grow the brand a little bit more, reach a wider audience with those, if nothing else. Let your friends know about us. We're always looking to grow that. And today I wanted to look at Metroid Dread as it released last Friday, with it being less than a week since the release date. Just give my thoughts on that game. I've sunk about 10 hours, maybe a little bit more into that game at this point, though it does seem like longer, and that can be attributed to the fact that the clock does not continue to tick when you're in the start menu looking at your map, and you will spend a good bit of time doing that if you're like me, trying to get everything possible in one of those areas. I think there's like 7 different areas in the game. I just wanted to give my first thoughts on the title as well as the franchise as a whole. Now, if you're anything like me, I was born in the mid to late 80s, so I played the original Metroid on the NES console, and I wasn't a huge fan. It was just overly difficult, as many of those SNES, or NES I should say, titles were back in the day. They're just way more difficult than games that come out today that hold your hand, take you through everything. And I just did not like that at the time. I wasn't a fan of it in any way, shape, or form, so I did not play that. I didn't play Super Metroid. I saw a friend of mine play a small portion of it, but again, it didn't look like anything up my alley. Fast forward to the Game Boy Advance's release, and then we got Metroid Fusion released. This was my first major outing with the Metroid franchise. I hadn't played anything prior to this, and I spent a ludicrous amount of time just going through that game, getting everything that I could. I think I had a strategy guide, or I looked it up online at the time off GameFAQs, and I was tracking down every missile, every super bomb, every energy tank that you could get, every upgrade. And for about a month, I think I immersed myself in doing this, and I went through so many AA batteries before the Game Boy Advance SP came out with that built-in battery pack. This grew my love for the franchise as a whole. I had no great love for Metroid prior to this, or Samus Aran, any of that. I wasn't a fan whatsoever. I quite did not like the game because of the difficulty, but this grew on me here. Something about the story, it was not very handholdy. You did have Adam, the AI, who showed you where to go, places you need to go, and make sure that you went, and you had to evade the X-Parasite that had taken over your form in that game. And the game overall was fantastic to me. I don't know what it was about me. Maybe it was because I was playing these during those formative years. Around that time, I might have been coming of age as a teenager there, or something along those lines. But I fell in love with the game. And Metroid Dread seems to continue that storyline. It improves upon the past game titles in such a profound way. It is hands down the best 2.5D Metroid, 2D Metroid even. You take both those titles with Dread there. Dread is quite fantastic. Like I said, I've sunk a little over 10 hours. The game is not overly long. You can beat it in like 13, and that's if you go through and grab everything, which I'm trying to do. And as I understand it, there are a couple different endings that you can get based on time, so I will have to go back through this and try to get some of the better endings by just speed running through there. But what we have here from Dread is a result of every title for this getting incrementally better, adding more features, adding more systems, until we've got to this point where we have such a great game. For instance, in the 3DS title, Samus's Return, they added a counter. This makes a return in Metroid Dread, albeit the focus is not as heavily on this. Though I have used it quite a bit and gotten better at it, because it's quite easy to defeat some of the stronger monsters just by doing this. Whereas if you're using your missiles or your charge beam, it does take a little bit more to kill them. You can simply hit them with the parry, melee counter, and then blast them with your primary shot, not even charge. Oftentimes that'll take them right down. So I do use it a good bit. I'm not aware if the slide mechanic that they included in this was in the 3DS title or not. I can tell you that it was not in the Game Boy Advance title. Like I said, back in the day, I went from Fusion, then I jumped up to Prime, and Prime was a whole different beast, first person for Metroid. First time I think that happened, and hopefully we'll get some kind of continuous of that sometime in the future. I just say that to say that Metroid, it had such a profound love for me after Fusion as a whole. It just sucked me into that universe. I'd fully known that those games were out there, and I even went on to sometime after this, Samus became my main in Smash, maybe as a result of the love for the game. I can't say for sure, but I just know that up until that point, I didn't care about the titles at all. And Dread is, I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know what the story holds there and how it puts a nice little bow on top of the whole X-Parasite story that we have going on here, but I'll just have to wait and see. First thoughts are, it's just a fantastic title. It's one that I recommend that if you are a fan of that genre, the Metroidvania, or a fan of Metroid at all, that you pick it up. Because it doesn't get much better than this. Though it may be shorter in length, what they make up for that with is quality. So it's always, as I had a friend used to say that I worked with, an older guy, always said quality over quantity, and that is exactly what we have here, quality. Like I said, I've spent a whole weekend going through this title, and I've still yet to finish it yet. Like I said, I don't feel like that I've only put around 10 or 11 hours into it, because I've been vigorously studying the map, trying to figure out where each missile point is. And a lot of times I'll get there and I won't be able to get anything, because of course it's that classic Metroidvania formula of, oh, there's this power up that I need to pick this up. I'm going to have to come back 3/4 of the way through the game back to the first stage in order to pick this up. So it hits all the high points that you would look for in this, in a Metroid title in particular as well. It's crazy to think that it's taken us 20 years to get to this point, because Metroid Fusion was released way back in like 2000, in the early 2000s. Not sure the exact date, but it's about 20 years if I recall correctly, and that's what I've heard other YouTubers and everything say as I've listened up to the release of this title. I think it'll do quite well in the sales front, and I really hope that it doesn't take us that long to get another title. Metroid overall seems like the redheaded stepchild of Nintendo's IPs, to be honest with you. If we look back at the N64, I don't think there was a Metroid title at all released on there. Up until then, we had one on the NES, the SNES, and when we hit the 64, there was, if memory serves, if I'm incorrect here, somebody let me know, but I'm fairly certain we did not get any kind of Metroid title for the N64. Around the time of the GameCube, we did get all three of the Prime trilogies, and of course on the handheld market, there's been quite a few. And this may be owed to the fact that there are more 2D titles, and Nintendo hasn't felt comfortable putting those titles out, asking a full MSRP price tag off of that. Thus, for them, it may not be worth it. Even so, this title, Metroid Dread itself, was actually developed by an outside studio, Mercury Steam. They are the developer most known for reviving the Castlevania series for Konami, so that makes sense. And the Metroid title on the 3DS, Samus Returns. And to be the first half of the namesake of a Metroidvania definitely lives up to the hype, to the expectations. Everything, every box that you would want checked in that genre is definitely checked off here. It's just interesting that Nintendo handed off development of this to Mercury Steam, one of their more premier IPs, though Nintendo might not think so. And I only say that because you don't see a whole lot of Zelda or Mario games being developed by a third-party independent studio. Most of those are handled by first-party Nintendo studios or in-house at Nintendo. Now, this has changed a little bit more recently with the release of the Mario plus Rabbids that was handled by Ubisoft. And then again, we look at the Pokemon franchise, and they handed it off to Bandai Namco for Snap, and what was the other one? Pokken Tournament. So maybe this is a growing theme with Nintendo going forward. They actually trust their IPs out to some of the developers who have really shown their chops, what they can do with the software, with the titles, and just give them the reins to do so. And it might be a good thing overall. But I don't see like I've not seen a mainline title unless we're looking like at Ilka when the Pokemon Company gave them Diamond and Pearl. That's another instance of this. But you're not going to see, like I said, you don't see Breath of the Wild 2 being developed by, let's say, just for namesake and jokes and giggles, Sony. You don't see Sony developing that. You don't see Santa Monica Studios handling that or anything along those lines. So it's just very interesting that one of their, in my opinion, premier IPs is being handled by an independent studio. It either says a great deal towards Nintendo's trust of what they've done with the Castlevania series and their 3DS title, Samus's Return. It either shows they're going in a new direction, or maybe they're just trying some new things. It's an interesting time, and like I said, if you are on the fence about this title, I'd say take the plunge. I say take the plunge because it's an excellent title. I've not finished it yet, but I imagine I'm going to be going for round 2 or 3 in that just to see, if nothing else, if I can't get some of those other endings. I'm looking to see. I have not seen Ridley in this title. It would be interesting to see if he shows up. I'm doubtful, but who knows? I've got a couple more upgrades to get, a couple more bosses to get through, areas to clear out. Maybe I'll get lucky. And I guess all we can do is hope that Nintendo doesn't take so long. Maybe the sales numbers from this title are strong enough to show Nintendo that there is a large interest in this, and they could speed the development of a couple others or subsequent titles in this series. Like I said, everything leading up that makes this title great is a result of every title before it getting incrementally better, adding systems, and it just shows the evolution of it. If you go back and you play the original Metroid on the NES console series, the NES Classic Online series, then you'll definitely see. You play that, and then you jump on over to the SNES, you play Super Metroid. If you've got a Wii U or a Game Boy Advance with Fusion lying around, I highly suggest you pick that up as well, because it is a stellar title, and there were some interesting things they had in that as well. When in Prime, you could link your Game Boy Advance to Prime with that in there, and you could get the Fusion suit, which Samus actually starts with in this title, and get it in there. Whereas originally you just had the Varia suit, and it was just a different look. It did nothing, power-ups or anything. It was just aesthetically pleasing to see the suit that you used throughout the whole Fusion cycle, and Metroid Prime as well. But I think I've rambled on enough. Let me know what you guys think if you pick this up, or are you going to pick it up. If you, like I said, if you're on the fence, I highly recommend you do so. If you haven't already, check out our friends of the channel, the VGCast official _ video game nights. They're always putting out interesting content as well. And I hope you guys enjoy.